In his response to tackling job scams involving Korean nationals in Cambodia, President Incheon called for tighter measures against global phishing scams. Hardline conservative Sanae Takaichi, the leader of Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, has been elected as Japan's first female prime minister in the country's constitutional history. Ahead of the APEC leaders meeting later this month, the APEC finance ministers meeting is in full swing here in South Korea, where finance ministers from 21 countries explore how innovation, finance, and fiscal policy can contribute to sustainable growth in light of an accelerating digital economy. Following an investigation into Korean nationals suspected of running phishing scams in Cambodia, the South Korean government has called for extra efforts to deal with related issues. Our Park Kwon-woo starts us off.
Stronger efforts with an extraordinary response, not business as usual, are needed to tackle international fraud cases. That's what President Lee Jae-myung ordered during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, following the recent surge in scam cases linked to Koreans in Cambodia.
국가 권력과도 관계가 있다는 설이 있을 정도이기 때문에 쉽게 뿌리 뽑혀지지는 않을 것 같아요. 인력이든 조직이든 필요하면 최대한 확보해 드릴 테니까 새로운 시각으로 좀 접근해 주시길 바랍니다.
He added he's asked for the National Intelligence Service to get involved, citing the crime's international scope. He also urged cooperation among other relevant authorities, including the Foreign Ministry, to think from a new perspective when dealing with the issue. The Foreign Ministry held a separate meeting the same day to assess the situation and review detailed measures. Officials discussed ways of running the Korea-Cambodia Joint Task Force agreed last week, boosting embassy personnel, and strengthening cooperation between police authorities of both countries. Meanwhile, investigations into the repatriated Korean suspects from Cambodia, allegedly involved as perpetrators in phishing schemes targeting fellow Koreans, are picking up speed. As of Tuesday, at least 49 of the 64 people transferred to Korea by Cambodian authorities have been arrested, with more to be added, raising expectations that the probe will gain even greater momentum. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
And President Incheon is urging for stronger safety measures as South Korea heads into one of its busiest times of the year for festivals across the country. Our President Office correspondent Song Yujin has more.
President Lee Jae-myung has reiterated that when it comes to public safety, more is always better than less.
국민 안전에 대해서만큼은 언제나 과하다 싶을 정도로 대비하는 것이 맞습니다.
His remarks at Tuesday's cabinet meeting came as South Korea hosts the APEC economic leaders meeting next week, an event expected to draw tens of thousands of delegates and visitors.
정부는 각 지방정부와 긴밀히 협력하면서 다중 인파가 몰리는 행사에 대한 안전조치 강화 그리고 안전관리에 만전을 기해 주시기 바랍니다.
The country is also bracing for large-scale Halloween gatherings next week. 3 years ago, a deadly crowd crush in Seoul's Itaewon neighborhood just before Halloween claimed the lives of more than 150 people, sparking public outrage and calls for stronger safety measures. During Tuesday's cabinet meeting, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety reported its Halloween crowd control plan.
We will designate a special safety management period for Halloween from October 24th to November 2nd. This year, the number of key crowd control zones will increase from 27 to 29, and for the first time, we will issue a caution crowd alert to raise public awareness and strengthen coordination among relevant agencies.
From October 31st to November 2nd, when crowds are expected to peak, the ministry will deploy personnel for inspection and field response in coordination with local governments, police, and fire authorities. In line with its focus on safety, the president also called for stricter accountability for those responsible for what he described as preventable industrial accidents, citing repeated fatal falls at construction sites that could have been avoided through legally required safety measures. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
South Korea is hosting the APEC Finance and Structural Reform Ministers meeting in Incheon, outlining innovation, finance, and fiscal policies for sustainable growth. Our Park Chun-han reports.
Ahead of the APEC leaders meeting next week, the APEC Finance and Structural Reform Ministers meeting kicked off on Tuesday. During the three-day meeting from Tuesday through Thursday in Incheon, relevant ministers will discuss ways to achieve sustainable growth in response to the acceleration of the digital economy, including artificial intelligence.
This year, we are poised to take an important step, adopting the Incheon Plan, a new 5-year roadmap for the APEC finance track.
The new 5-year Incheon Plan, Gu addressed, focuses on innovation, finance, fiscal policies, and access and opportunity for all. Notably, the roadmap broadens the traditional focus on financial inclusion by introducing a new pillar dedicated to access and opportunity for all. Under the Incheon Plan, future APEC chair economies will select their annual agenda from the forementioned pillars and lead discussions accordingly. Koo also highlighted the challenging global landscape marked by policy uncertainty. He pointed to rising trade uncertainties, elevated debt levels, and demographics, as well as climate changes as key issues facing the Asia-Pacific region. He therefore reaffirmed APEC's commitment to cooperation, mutual trust, and unity in addressing these challenges. Starting with the finance ministers meeting on Tuesday, a joint session on innovation and digitalization, and the structural reform ministers meeting will be held on Wednesday, followed by a joint press conference on Thursday. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
South Korean stocks saw another new record high on Tuesday, with the benchmark KOSPI hovering just below the 3,900 mark. Now the index closed at just over 3,823 points, 0.24% higher than Monday's close. Intraday trading saw the KOSPI nudging 3,900, but it eventually fell back as investors cashed in on a profit-taking. Semiconductor stocks rose during intraday trading, including those of SK Hynix, which briefly surpassed 500,000 Korean won for the first time, but then closed at 479,000 won, below its Monday's closing price. Samsung Electronics stocks also hit just below 100,000 won, but closed at 97,500 Korean won. South Korea's biggest annual electronics show opened on Tuesday with a spotlight on cutting-edge AI, robotics, and IoT technologies. Our Moon Ji-young was there.
Where an extraordinary spectrum of cutting-edge technology is showcased. Marking its 56th anniversary, the Korea Electronics Show kicked off in Seoul on Tuesday, drawing over 530 companies from 13 countries, including Korea, the United States, France, Japan, and Germany, all eager to showcase the future direction of advanced technologies.
This year's Korea Electronics Show aims to present how artificial intelligence, robots, and mobility technology can come together to shape the future.
Tech giant Samsung Electronics is showcasing optimized AI solutions applied to everyday life, featuring its latest mobile devices, displays, home appliances, as well as the personalized movable screen and transparent micro-LED. Another industry titan, LG Electronics, has highlighted its affectionate intelligence. They demonstrated how AI enables natural conversations with vehicles, transforming them beyond mere transportation into mobile offices or pop-up stores, and also presented cutting-edge displays like immersive, ultra-high-definition micro-LED screens. Beyond consumer applications, one company demonstrated its cutting-edge AI-controlled drone technology. Upon detecting a fire in an inaccessible area, the drone immediately shares this data with a robot, which then enters the fire scene with a fire extinguisher to put out the blaze.
Though humanoid robots are often discussed, they typically function as individual units. We, however, aim to demonstrate the practical feasibility of multiple diverse robots collaborating to achieve a single mission.
Running through this Friday, the show is expected to attract more than 70,000 visitors. Organizers highlight that this year's event is particularly significant due to its strengthened cooperation with the Consumer Technology Association, the organizers of CES. 문지영, Arirang News.
The Japanese side elected ultra-conservative Sanae Takaichi as the country's first female prime minister on Tuesday, marking a historic milestone for Japan and a potential turning point for its politics. Pyongyang has more.
Sanae Takaichi, the leader of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, became Japan's 104th prime minister and the first woman to hold the office since the cabinet system was established 140 years ago. Her rise follows the last-minute coalition deal between the LDP and the conservative Japan Innovation Party, forged after its 26-year alliance with the centrist Komeito collapsed. A longtime conservative within the LDP, Takaichi advocates revising Japan's pacifist constitution, bolstering defense and tightening immigration. She also opposes same-sex marriage and separate surnames for married couples, positions that have stirred debate among moderates and younger voters. While Takaichi's conservative credentials are well known, questions remain about how her ideology will translate into foreign policy, especially when it comes to Korean-Japanese relations. Her past visits to the Yasukuni Shrine, which enshrines Japan's war dead, including convicted war criminals, have often drawn criticism from Japan's East Asian neighbors. Yet some analysts say she may soften that stance now that she's taken the country's top office.
Takaichi is known for very conservative orientation towards history issues with Japan's East Asian neighbors. She continued to pay tribute to the war dead, including convicted war criminals at the Yasukuni Shrine. But after the victory as the leader of LDP, she had stopped herself from going to the shrine in person. So it seems like she'll tone down her hawkish stance vis-a-vis Japan's East Asian neighbors on history issues as Japan's prime minister.
South Korea's foreign ministry said it will continue to maintain close communication with the new Japanese administration and work together to sustain positive momentum in bilateral ties. The ministry noted that both countries, as close neighbors and global partners sharing similar interests amid a rapidly changing strategic and trade environment, should keep striving to advance future-oriented relations. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung has congratulated Japan's new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi on her election win, saying he hopes to bolster a future-oriented cooperation in a mutually beneficial way. Taking to his social media account on Tuesday, he noted the importance of this Seoul-Tokyo relationship, adding that the two neighbors stand at a major turning point amid heightened global uncertainties. He said he looks forward to meeting the new Japanese Prime Minister at the upcoming APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju for constructive dialogue. President Lee added that he hoped for more frequent meetings based upon their so-called shuttle diplomacy. In other news, the top diplomats of the U.S. and Russia held a phone call on Monday local time to prepare for an upcoming summit between their leaders in Budapest. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a constructive conversation on Monday regarding preparations for a summit. According to a statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, the top diplomats discussed ways to implement the agreements reached during the previous phone talks between Presidents Trump and Putin on the 16th. The U.S. State Department also confirmed that the two discussed follow-up measures to the leaders' recent phone call and added that Rubio emphasized the importance of the upcoming engagements as an opportunity for Washington and Moscow to collaborate on advancing a durable resolution to the Russia-Ukraine war in line with President Trump's vision. Sources say a summit between the two leaders is expected to take place in the first half of November. Following the U.S. president's trip to Japan and South Korea, the Rubio and Lavrov are to make further arrangements when they meet face-to-face. The top diplomats' talks come amid Trump's changing position regarding the war, showing another major shift from his previous position where he said late last month that Ukraine could win back all its territory. Trump said he doesn't think Ukraine can win the war against Russia.
They could still win it. I don't think they will, but they could still win it. I never said they would win it. I said they could win it.
Russia, meanwhile, reiterated its unchanged stance, saying through a foreign ministry's spokesperson's interview on Monday with TASS that any peace deal should address the root cause of the conflict to ensure fundamental and long-term peace. Such remarks reaffirmed that Russia would keep holding on to the position that Ukraine's pursuit of NATO membership and the alliance's eastward expansion are the fundamental causes that triggered the conflict. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And now, while all eyes are on whether major tariff deals will be struck at the upcoming APEC leaders meeting, U.S. President Donald Trump says he expects to reach a deal with China, just like he did with South Korea, Japan, and the EU. Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he expects Washington and Beijing to reach what he called a very strong trade deal during his upcoming meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea. The comments came Monday during a White House meeting with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, where Trump also highlighted recent fair trade agreements his administration has secured with South Korea and Japan.
We worked out a very fair trade deal. Japan, we worked out a very fair deal. South Korea, where I'll be meeting President Xi, we worked out a very fair deal. And I expect we'll probably work out a very fair deal with President Xi of China.
Trump reiterated that he plans to meet President Xi in a couple of weeks as South Korea prepares to host the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in the southeastern city of Gyeongju from October 31st to November 1st. The U.S. president is widely expected to make a state visit to Korea from October 29th to 30th, with the summit offering a key stage for renewed dialogue between the world's two largest economies amid mounting trade tensions. Those tensions have sharply intensified following Beijing's recent decision to tighten export controls on rare earth elements, materials that are essential to the production of advanced electronics, electric vehicles, and military hardware. In response, Trump sharply criticized China for what he described as an extraordinarily aggressive stance on trade, warning that unless progress is made, Washington will double down on punitive measures. Meanwhile, Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese signed a new agreement on rare earths and critical minerals on Monday. The deal aims to secure a reliable supply of these vital materials as China moves to tighten its control over global production and exports.
We are discussing critical minerals and rare earths, and we're going to be signing an agreement that's been negotiated over a period of 4 or 5 months.
The upcoming APEC summit now looms as a crucial test of whether the world's two largest economies can defuse another round of trade confrontation, or whether the latest wave of tariffs will deepen an already fragile global trade environment. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's ruling Democratic Party is moving at full speed with its 3 major reforms, announcing new proposals to reshape both the judiciary and the media. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins me in the studio to tell us more. Welcome back, Hae-ryun.
Good evening, Tammy.
So, Hae-ryun, why don't we start with the core of these reform bills? Tell us more.
Right, so the Democratic Party unveiled its judiciary and media reform proposals on Monday, marking a major step in its push to complete the so-called 3 major reforms: prosecutorial, judicial, and the media. Back in September, the ruling bloc pushed through a prosecutorial reform bill that abolishes the existing Prosecution Service and splits its core functions into separate institutions. Now the focus has shifted to judicial and media reform, both of which the party says are essential to restoring fairness and public trust in key state institutions. Starting with judicial reform, the bill would nearly double the number of Supreme Court justices from 14 to 26. The party says this will help speed up case handling and bring more diverse perspectives to top court deliberations. Once the current plan takes effect, 4 new justices will be appointed each year, meaning that by the 3rd year, the Supreme Court would reach its new total of 26. And with 10 justices' terms, including Chief Justice Cho Lee-dae, set to expire during President Lee Jae-myung's term, the president could end up appointing as many as 22 justices in total. Now, it's worth noting that in South Korea, Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president, but require approval from the National Assembly. The Chief Justice recommends candidates for the positions of associate justices to the president, and this ensures that the judiciary has a role in selecting its own members, limiting excessive executive influence.
And I do have to mention that's a huge change to the judicial structure, but we have to talk about how political parties are reacting to these bills.
That's right. So the proposal has sparked, not surprisingly, some intense debate. So the ruling Democratic Party insists that the reform aims to restore public trust in the judiciary, arguing it will help ensure courts remain politically neutral under any circumstances. So let's take a listen to what its chairman said during the press conference yesterday.
Opposing judicial reform is no different from saying that. Given the opportunity, one can make biased rulings based on political interests. Judicial reform is about legally ensuring political neutrality under all circumstances.
The main opposition People Power Party, however, has condemned the move, calling it a judicial coup and a destruction of judicial independence. They argue that the plan could allow the current administration to stack the Supreme Court with politically favorable justices.
The judicial reform being pushed by the Lee administration is a judicial coup with zero independence and fairness, an attempt by the government to control trials and dictate their outcomes.
During the Legislation and Judiciary Committee audit today, on Tuesday, lawmakers continue to clash fiercely, particularly over the proposed appeal to the Constitutional Court system, which effectively creates a 4th level of trial. While this has been excluded from the draft bill as a result of the criticism, the DP plans to develop it after further party consideration. The judicial reform package also proposes diversifying the Justice Recommendation Committee, introducing a judicial performance evaluation system, and expanding public disclosure of court rulings.
Now, Arirang, last but not least, what about the DP's media reform? What are the latest developments?
So the Democratic Party also rolled out its media reform proposal yesterday, targeting the spread of false information or manipulated information online. The bill would introduce a punitive damages system, allowing courts to impose up to 5 times the actual damages on media outlets or YouTubers found to have deliberately spread false content. It also includes fines of up to 1 billion won for repeated offences and measures to confiscate profits gained through false reporting. To prevent misuse of defamation suits by public figures, the proposal adds a clause against lawsuits meant to silence critical reporting. The DP says this is about protecting citizens from misinformation and strengthening responsible journalism, but the PPP warns it could chill press freedom and discourage investigative reporting. With the DP aiming to push these reform bills through within this regular session of the National Assembly that lasts until December, the PPP has vowed to do everything to block the passage of these bills, including a filibuster.
Let's see how that goes. Arirang, thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
As the day went on, the autumn sun shined and the weather got much warmer than the morning. It was still lower than the average for this time of year, but it was easier to be active during the day than in the morning. Temperatures will gradually recover to the average levels, and late autumn weather will appear in the second half of the week. A small amount of rain has been falling around the East Coast, about 5 to 20 millimeters in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province, 5 to 10 millimeters in Busan, Ulsan, and the east coast of Gyeongsang-buk-do province. In addition, as the waves will be strong around these areas, please be aware of coastal safety. Tomorrow morning, Seoul, Chuncheon, and Daejeon will start off at 6 degrees, Daegu and Gyeongju at 11 degrees. Daily highs will up to 18 to 22 degrees all over the country. However, early winter cold is expected to come again early next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.